please, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She is a supernatural thriller writer, lucid dreamer, and a road tripper, no other than Miss Risa Patterson.
Hey there. How's it going, Daniel?
I'm busy always, Miss Riza, and welcome to Book 101 Review. And can you
Thanks.
please introduce more about yourself?
So I'm Risa. I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and in December I quit my job as a project manager to focus on self-publishing my supernatural thriller novel, which is called Firebug.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And today, let's talk about the imposter syndrome.
hmm
When did you first recognize imposter syndrome in your own life, and what did realization feels like?
I feel like one of my earliest uh, real examples of imposter syndrome was when I got my first office job. And I'd spent most of my life working in, food service gigs, working in bars and restaurants, and wanting to move towards doing more like graphic design and office work. And I got hired in a company in San Francisco, and I spent the first 2 years of that job feeling like a complete fraud and feeling like they're going to realize at any minute that I am not supposed to be here and that I'm not good at this. And it took about 2 years for me to really look around and be like, oh, I actually might be good at this. And I might belong here. And that was the first big leap that I took to overcome having imposter syndrome in that setting. And ever since then, I feel like I've been learning lessons about it and finding ways to get on the other side of it and circumvent it and just, have the feeling of imposter syndrome and not let that get in your way.
How would you explain imposter syndrome to someone who thinks it's just a normal self doubt?
Imposter syndrome is a feeling that you are not worthy of the thing that is happening to you, or you don't deserve it, or you're not good enough. And it happens a lot in professional settings. I think it affects women more than men a lot of the time. And it is the sense that you are not doing a good enough job, or this space is not meant for you. And it's super common in, anytime you're trying anything new or you're pushing yourself, it's a common feeling. And I've actually learned to embrace the feeling, because the way that you grow is by doing things before you're ready to do them. So if you're putting yourself in spaces where you feel like I'm not good at this, whether it's, like going to a yoga class and being the least flexible person in the yoga class, being, like starting a book or starting a new job, that feeling of, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if I'm the right person for this gig. I think that that is a good sign that you're moving in the right direction and you're challenging yourself. Because if you're not doing that, if you're staying in your comfort zone, you're staying comfortable, then you're probably not growing very much. So I think it's a really necessary part of the human experience to do something before you're ready to do it.
Ms. Risa, why do highly capable people often experience imposter syndrome most intensely?
I think the reason for that is that there is a gap between where they're at and where they want to be. And highly successful people are always striving to reach that destination of being the version of themselves that they want to be. And I think that they can focus on that gap that exists between their present and their potential, and not see how much progress that they've made. And I think the trick is to, you kind of have to trick your brain to see where you're at as a an opportunity for growth, rather than thinking of yourself as not being far enough along in your journey.
Miss Risa, tell us what is a firebug is.
So Firebug is a supernatural thriller. It is about a young woman named Olivia Madden, who is this headstrong woman in her 20s, and she just got a good job in Austin, Texas, out of grad school. And she becomes the object of a wager, unbeknownst to her, for her mortal soul. And two entities who live in the underworld, Hades and Arachne, are basically, they have a bet that he can make her commit a mortal sin and go to hell. And over the course of the story, she has supernatural powers that get unlocked that lead to her having these increasing powers that affect the people around her. And there's other things happening in the story as well. There's a cult where two exiled brothers of the cult become entangled in her life as well. So there's a whole lot of things happening, and it all is building in intensity until the conclusion of the story, which I won't spoil, but it's a story where everything is building and building and building to, will she be able to overcome these powers and triumph over something unimaginable.
Well, looking forward for the firebug, Miss Risa, and what are your expectations?
Well, so this definitely gets back into the imposter syndrome thing because this is the first time that I'm really going to be putting this amount of work into self-publishing. I've hired an editor and she's working on it right now, and I'm really excited about getting the edits back because the sample edit that she did was phenomenal. So I'm excited about that. I have hired a an artist to do the cover art, and this is someone that I met at an art night in Austin, Texas. His name is Lead. It's Leeahd. He's on Instagram if you want to look him up. He's super talented. So yeah, I'm hiring real people to help me make this book as good as it can be, both in content and visually. And then I'm gonna, publish on Kindle as well as Ingram Spark, which is the direct to, it's the print on demand service that gets it in bookstores. So I have a whole plan of going around to local bookstores and libraries and talking to them about having my book and doing book signings and book readings and stuff like that. So yeah, I have a lot of plans in the works to really get the word out there and let people know that this is a book that is, available to read. And it's definitely going to be, it's an interesting read. It's not for the faint of heart. So this is for folks who like books like me, like Stephen King books and stuff like that. I grew up reading Stephen King when I was little. He's the reason that I wanted to be a writer. And I think that anyone who is a Stephen King fan could connect with this book.
Good luck,
Thank
Miss
you.
Risa, for the firebug, and looking forward for more success.
Awesome. Thanks, Daniel.
How do societal expectations and workplaces culture contribute to imposter feelings?
I think that there, the first thing that's coming to mind is anytime you see a job listing for a job that you want to apply for, the bullet notes sound really intimidating. If this is one of your first times like getting into a position, it's like you can look at a list of requirements or certifications or anything for a position and think, well, I've only got a few of these. I don't have, am I really going to be able to fill all of these bullet points in terms of what this job is asking for? It just sounds like a lot all at once. And so I think people can balk at that, instead of seeing it as an opportunity to, like, okay, how can I grow? Can I get up to speed with this skill? I like to tell people, like, I'm a really fast learner. If there's something that I don't know, I can pick it up. And I think that there are ways that the job can appear more intimidating than actually it is, and then you get into the job and you realize, oh, this is just like everything else, you just learn by doing it, and any job has specific things that you have to pick up. So I think the trick is to not be intimidated by the way that a job is presenting itself, and just do what you can to get in there and do the best you can and learn and listen to advice people are giving you. And I think that'll go a long way towards making you feel like this is a place that you actually belong.
Can you share a time when imposter syndrome nearly stopped you from pursuing an import opportunity?
Yeah, I back when I was in my 20s, I was working at a bar that was basically empty during my shifts, and I was playing darts with the one person that was in there, which I think was the guy I was dating at the time. And I was singing along to whatever was playing on the jukebox, and he was like, "You have a good voice. You should be in a band." And I was like, "Okay." So I found a local cover band and I reached out, and they actually had me audition by singing live on stage. They just got me up on stage and had me sing a song. And so I sang a song and I did the best I could. And then they let me know it wasn't a fit. And I thought, okay, maybe this isn't a thing that I really can do. And I decided, like, let me try a few more times. Let me not take this one point of failure as like I'm destined to never be a musician. And so I tried out for another band, and they were looking for a keyboardist who could do backup vocals, like harmonies. And I was like, I can do those things. I can play piano and I can sing harmonies. And so I auditioned and they hired me on the spot. And then I was in a band for 3.5 years. And that was how I actually made a living for those years in my 20s. And I definitely spent a lot of the early days of that feeling like I can't believe they hired me. I don't know if I can do this. And the very first show that I played, I was so nervous that I almost threw up. Like I was a wreck on stage. And then after a few months and years of playing, it started to just be what I did. I wasn't nervous at all. I would get up on stage and I would perform and have fun. And I had no nerves whatsoever because I had just done it so many times. You just get used to being in front of people, and I, knew the songs a lot better. And yeah, it definitely was something where I'm glad that I didn't take that first point of failure of being rejected from being in a band to I was able to push past that and keep trying, and it was a really significant part of my life, and I'm still very close with the lead singer. Her name's Kat Robichaux. She's very talented. She lives in the Bay Area, and she's one of my very best friends. We talk all the time. So there's all sorts of ways that my life was really, really improved by pushing myself past accepting that this is not a thing that was meant for me because it was.
Miss Risa, how does societal media, social media, imposter syndrome in today's digital age?
Man, so there's a saying that goes something like, don't compare your behind the scenes to someone else's oh gosh, what is it, to someone else's, reel. I'm forgetting the saying, but it's basically, oh, highlight reel. Don't compare your behind the scenes to someone else's
Yes.
highlight reel. What you see on social media is not anywhere near the full picture of what a person's life is, or what it looks like. I think people are really fond of presenting one side of things, and like a very sunny positive side of things to social media. And I do it too. Like I have a when I put something on my TikTok, I try to keep it upbeat and I try to keep it positive and I try to bring up all of the ways that I'm moving forward. But behind the scenes, yeah, there is a lot of rejection, and there's a lot of sense of, I don't know what's going to happen with this. I don't know, how many people are going to read this book. And I honestly just have to ignore those things and keep going and just keep my head up and keep the forward momentum going and just wake up every day and work on my writing career in some way. Because I think a lot of people who succeed in doing something that is challenging and hard, they did that because they kept going past the point where a rational person would have given up. Like they just are like, yeah, this is hard. I'm getting all sorts of signs that nothing's going to come of this, and then they keep going anyway, and that's when the magic happens. And I know that there are some people watching this that are going to relate to that you keep going past when logic dictates that you should quit, and then that's when it happens. But I feel like a lot of the time, if you're only seeing these people and it's just success and bright shiny faces, it can feel easy to want to be like, well, I'm not there, I'm not doing this. But I think that's also, it's important to remember that that's not reality.
Yes, people, social media are curated part of our lives. So, supernatural writer, lucid dreamer, road tripper, what are your short term and long term goals?
Short-term goals. I have been, while I'm waiting on getting the edits back from my editor for Firebug, I've been writing 1,000 words a day in the next book that I'm going to have coming out called Loop Nevada, which is a time loop story that takes place in 1888 Nevada. So I'm definitely am not twiddling my thumbs. I have something to work on every day, so that feels really good. So short-term goals are just, continuing to work on that. As soon as I get the edits back from my editor, it's going to be off to the races getting that done. I'm doing all sorts of things. Like I the other day printed out a series of font size samples to kind of see what font do I want to use for my novel, what font size, what leading, like that kind of thing. So there's all sorts of things that I'm doing to move forward and prepare for getting things out there. My long term goals, I would really love to be able to support myself with a combination of writing and freelance graphic design, which is another thing that I do on the side. So I have a van. I own a 1995 GMC Vandura, and one of my long-term goals is to live out of that van at least part-time. So being able to be mobile and be remote and work from anywhere is really important to me. And that feels like a dream to me, to be able to have some amount of money coming in from book sales, have some amount of money coming in from freelance graphic design, and to be able to support myself and be remote and be flexible in terms of my location is a lifelong dream of mine. And it's really exciting to feel like it is within reach. I just have to, keep hustling and keep making enough right moves to make it happen.
Yes, try until you succeed, Miss Rita, and good luck to your goals and looking forward for more success.
Thank you.
And what would be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be thriller writer, lucid dreamer, as well as a road tripper?
I so one of my favorite quotes is by George Bernard Shaw, and I'm going to try to remember it. I actually wrote a song about this. I wrote a song making, like, putting this quote to music, so I have to kind of think of it in terms of the song to remember what it is. But it goes, "This is the true joy in life, the being used for a purpose, recognized by yourself as a mighty one, the being a force of nature instead of a uh, instead of a something little clod of ailments and grievances, complaining that the world will not devote itself to making you happy. I'm of the opinion that my life belongs to the whole community, and as long as I live, it is my privilege to do for it whatever I can. I want to be thoroughly used up when I die. Um, for the more I work, the more I live. Oh my gosh, I something. Oh God, I can't remember this part. Something for its own sake. Life is no brief candle to me. It is a sort of splendid torch that I have got hold of for the moment, and I want to make it burn as brightly as possible before handing it off to future generations. And what George Bernard Shaw is getting across with that quote, which I got most of it out, I remembered most of it off the top of my head, but he is trying to say that you have within you something authentic and genuine, and it's only going to exist this one time in all of creation, in the vast vacuum of space, in this one little blip of consciousness that you have in a vast sea of nothingness. You have something unique in you, and if you do not put it out into the world, it's not going to exist, and you are denying the world this beautiful thing that you have made. And this is true for art, this is true for music, this is true for writing. And I really love this because I have a lot of authors that I love. I love, Stephen King, Kurt Vonnegut, Tom Robbins, that are these incredible titans of creativity. And I'll read a Vonnegut book and literally get angry because he's so good, And I just, I would work my whole life towards getting anywhere near as good as any of these people that I've mentioned. And I'm not going to get there, but that is not the point. The point is that I have this within me to create these weird stories that would not otherwise exist. And it is my responsibility to myself and to the world to be my most authentic self and put myself out there as authentically as I can and make sure that I make this as good as I can make it. Um, because when I get to the end of my life, I get to look back at what I've created. And it's really important to me that I give this as much effort as I can. Because that's, and this is what helps battle me the imposter syndrome. And I'm like, I don't have to even be, I don't have to be the best at this. I just have to do my best. And as a result of that, there's something that exists that didn't exist before. And I hope that people are able to, enjoy and connect with it in the way that I did.
Very well said, Miss Risa. Very well said. Beautifully articulated. And thank you for that
Thank you.
advice. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Yeah, I've got a few I could recommend for anyone who's looking to be a writer. One of them is On Writing by Stephen King. It's a very easy, laid back read. It's very practical advice about writing and his experience with it. I think that's a really good one. Strunk and White's Elements of Style is a little bit more like dry and academic, but it's really, really good in terms of understanding how to. It's the importance of having every word in your book be load bearing. And one of the lines from Strunk and White is omit needless words, and that really gets to the heart of what they're going for in that book is just if you have two sentences that are saying the same thing, you got to check one of them out and then you can probably shorten the other one. So that's a really good one to read if you're looking to kind of get from a place of just putting words on paper to getting the economy of words that is actually going to really pack a punch. My favorite book about writing is called Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott. And it is a book that I honestly think anyone who is creative should read because so much of it is about getting out of the way of the critic of the imposter syndrome, like kind of silencing or quieting that voice enough to move forward with the thing that you want to create. And one of the things that she mentions in that book, and Daniel, can I swear? Can I say a swear word?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So Anne Lamott is a huge proponent of the shitty first draft. And what she means by shitty first draft is sit down with the intention of writing a shitty first draft. Sit down, not thinking like I'm going to write the next American novel, like I'm going to, I'm going to be as good as my heroes right out the gate. The first time that I sat down to write author Asbury, I was heartbroken because I had this really beautiful idea in my head and I got it on paper and it just was looked nothing like how I wanted it to look. Everything felt clunky and like the words were not at all matching the vision and it was really devastating to be like, oh no, like can I even do this? And I have learned since with the help of books like Bird by Bird that you have to get on the other side of that. You have to push past that. And if you sit down and think, I'm going to write 1,000 words today, it doesn't matter if they're good or bad. It just, I need to get 1,000 words down. Then it releases you of this illusion that you have to write something good because a lot of the time when you sit down you're not going to feel inspired and you're not going to even know where the scene is going. You're not going to, maybe you are like you literally do not want to write today. You're not in the mood. And if you wait until inspiration strikes and you have this like flash of genius with all the words you want to put down, it's never going to happen. You're never going to, I mean, maybe in a blue moon, but if you want to actually make progress towards putting words on paper, you really have to make yourself sit down and just stick to whatever word count you have every day. And that's something that Stephen King mentions in his book as well. Like just set a word count, stick to it. Don't let yourself get bogged down by not wanting to do it. And then if you do that, this beautiful thing happens where you have a first draft, and a first draft is infinitely better than nothing. So it does not matter how terrible your first draft is, it is infinitely better than having no draft at all. And then you have something that you can work with. And then you can go back and be like, oh, this conversation is really awkward. I'm going to change it. Or this whole character can get chucked out. The first draft of Firebug, which was not even there was another working title because the whole time I was writing it, I wasn't sure what I wanted it to be called, was a little over 300,000 words, which is way too many words. Any writer will tell you that is a ridiculous amount of words. No one's going to read that, especially if it's meandering and as, long-winded as my first draft was. And the current draft that my editor's working on is 96,000. So I chucked fully two-thirds of my first draft out. But so there's a lot of work that I put in that isn't getting used, but the novel exists, and it wouldn't have existed without the advice of Bird by Bird and embracing the shitty first draft. So those are my three favorites that I would recommend for anyone, especially if you're getting started with writing.
Thank you for the recommended books, Miss Risa. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and mental health 101 Love Letters in its fourth season, as well as my movie 101 review and music 101, science 101, and sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Miss Risa, what is your one sentence of wisdom for someone currently struggling with intense imposter feelings?
If you are struggling with imposter syndrome, that probably means that you're doing something right.
Hmm. Something right is in the air. Miss Risa Patterson, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your upcoming book, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Yeah, thank you so much. My website is risaepatterson.com. I am Risa Writes on TikTok. Thank you so much, Daniel. It was lovely meeting you.
Likewise, Miss Risa. Yes, people, let's support Miss Risa Patterson because if you support her, for sure, more and more and more empowering books to come, more and more empowering wisdom to come. So, Miss Risa, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Daniel.
More to come, people. See you soon.